Blessed are the eyes that see what you see. For I tell you, many kings and prophets have desired to see what you see, and have not seen it. To hear what you hear, and have not heard it. I thank you, Father, for hiding these things from the learned and the wise, and revealing them to the innocent and the simple.
Why? Why is this happening? Why?
Punishing everything in its path, a ferocious storm system pounded North Texas Monday. Torrential hail and winds near 70 miles per hour prompted tornado warnings and pummeled homes and businesses as more than 10,000 people lost power. The hail looked like torpedoes being shot into this backyard pool in Wiley, Texas. And in surrounding homes, balls of ice being blown by 70-mile-an-hour winds smashed through windows, leaving entire neighborhoods looking like this. Tim Taylor couldn't believe the damage to his home.
That's more glass falling.
Cars in parking lots and driveways took a pounding too. Jamie Doggett's new truck now needs a back window.
It was scary. It was definitely intense for a while.
The widespread and violent system produced baseball-sized hail, tore through cars, and even sparked this fire in Arkansas. In Texarkana, Arkansas, strong winds sent trees crashing into homes.
When I heard the boom, I ducked, and then I looked up and there was a tree in my house.
Bill Story and his wife barely escaped injury.
I heard hail, and I said, "Oh Lord, just protect us from those trees." I didn't start praying soon enough.
Since January, there have been 188 hailstorms across Texas, compared to 82 last year. 30 of this year's storms have produced hail 2 inches or larger. A March 16th storm caused $600 million in damage. 7 days later, hail caused $700 million in damage. Meteorologist Tom Bradshaw.
As we go into the latter half of April and certainly May, we could very well see additional storms on this scale.
Bradshaw says it's just been an unlucky year. For the last month, over Texas, there has been a perfect mix of moist air and instability in the atmosphere, keeping the hail suspended in the clouds for a longer period of time, allowing them to grow larger before falling.
This is really, really unusual.
At least 6 Pakistanis were killed in Sunday's magnitude 7.1 earthquake. The National Disaster Management Authority of Pakistan says 5 people died in various remote northwestern regions of the country, and at least 20 homes were destroyed. 1 man was killed by falling rocks in a mountainous region. The epicenter was in the northeast Afghanistan's Badakhshan province. Strong tremors were felt in the Afghan capital, Kabul, northern and eastern parts of Pakistan, and in India. In Pakistan's capital, Islamabad, some residents evacuated apartment blocks after tremors shook ceiling fans and furniture.
On Monday, 1 person was killed and 7 others were injured when 2 rockets were fired from within Syria and hit the Turkish border city of Kilis. Now, on Sunday, there were 3 other rockets that hit the town as well. 13 others were injured during this incident. The Turkish Prime Minister Ahmet Davutoğlu emphasized that on Monday they had immediately retaliated, hitting Islamic State targets within Syria within the rules of engagement. However, this has not been sufficient for the locals who are living in Kilis. They have protested in front of the governor's office, stating that they are demanding for extra security measures within Kilis, because this is not the first time that this is happening. There have been several incidents where rockets were fired into the city of Kilis, into the town of Kilis, and just in March there were 2 people who were killed, including a 4-year-old boy.
Typhoon winds reached 30 meters per second on Tuesday, tearing the roofs off of several factories and leaving some villages without power. The local electricity company dispatched the emergency crew with 130 workers and 39 vehicles to restore electricity to people's homes. Most buildings affected by the storm were back on the grid by 11 p.m. Tuesday evening.
Much of India is now grappling with an intense heat wave, with some areas reporting soaring temperatures of over 40 degrees Celsius. Since last week, the eastern state of Odisha, as well as the southern states of Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, have recorded a total of 130 deaths due to sunstrokes induced by the heat wave. And the country's Weather Bureau said the extreme temperature is caused by the El Nino phenomenon, delaying the usual April rainfalls. However, the Bureau said India will experience above normal rainfalls later this year.
Russian President Vladimir Putin pitched a military brushback to the United States. Over the past 2 days, his warplanes buzzed a U.S. destroyer in the Baltic Sea in what the White House calls a provocation.
Look at the guy to port. Look at the left one. He is on the deck.
They're coming so low and fast at first you can't make them out.
On the deck, below the bridge wing.
The Russian planes carried no weapons under their wings, but they were flying what the commander of the USS Donald Cook described as a simulated attack profile. Not once or twice, but 31 times over 2 days. It started on Monday. The Cook was preparing to conduct helicopter flight operations in the Baltic Sea in international waters 70 miles off the coast of the Russian enclave of Kaliningrad. A pair of Russian attack jets flew 20 close passes on the ship, coming as close as 1,000 yards at an altitude of 100 feet, ignoring radio calls from the Cook and forcing the ship to cancel flight operations. On Tuesday, a Russian helicopter circled the Cook 7 times, taking photographs. Then another pair of attack jets showed up and buzzed the Cook 11 times, this time coming within an estimated 30 feet of the ship and again ignoring attempts to contact them. This is the latest in a series of incidents over the past 2 years in which Russian aircraft have challenged NATO ships and planes. And the Obama administration is planning to lodge a diplomatic protest. White House spokesman Josh Earnest.
We have seen a pattern on the part of the Russians in undertaking these kinds of actions that they at least, I think, intend to be provocative.
The U.S. will file its protest, but Russia will have made its point. It resents American forces operating close to Russian territory and intends to push back.
Elsewhere, Russia has accused the U.S. of seeking to build up its military presence in the Korean Peninsula by deploying missile systems to the region.
Russia and China are no less concerned about the desire of individual states to use a difficult situation on the Korean Peninsula to build up their military presence in the region in order to load into it new weapons, including the most recent weapons which are so advanced that it's completely disproportionate to the real threat which comes from the situation on the Korean Peninsula.
At least 9 people have been killed, over 900 injured after a string of strong earthquakes hit southern parts of the country, collapsing homes and sparking fires. Tens of thousands of people fled their homes after a 6.5 magnitude tremor hit Mashiki town in the Kumamoto prefecture on the southwestern island of Kyushu late Thursday. Tens of thousands of people reportedly fled their homes, and television footage showed damaged buildings, buckled roads and lumps of broken concrete on the streets. The earthquake was logged at level 7 on the Japan seismic intensity scale of 7, marking the first since the devastating earthquake in March 2011. Local authorities say Japan's two sole operating nuclear reactors located on Kyushu were functioning normally. The earthquake triggered blackout in a region affecting about 16,000 households.
People in Tibet in southwest China also felt the earthquake. In Bangladesh, stampedes triggered by the earthquake injured scores of people, and officials in northeastern India have shut down thermal power stations as a precautionary measure. In the nation's capital, New Delhi, people evacuated high-rise buildings to gather in safety out on the street.
Zika concerns are rising here in the United States. There are now 30 states that are expected to be affected by the mosquito-borne virus this summer. That's more than double what was originally predicted. Top health officials say the U.S. needs to be more prepared for the virus to spread even further.
Everything we look at with this virus seems to be a bit scarier than we initially thought. And so while we absolutely hope we don't see widespread local transmission in the continental U.S., we need the states to be ready for that.
The CDC said confirmation the Zika virus causes microcephaly, an underdeveloped brain at birth, is unprecedented. It's the first time in history a virus transmitted by mosquito bite has been found to cause birth defects. Dr. Sonia Rasmussen is with the CDC.
What we're learning is that they have
a severe form of microcephaly that is oftentimes associated with other problems in the brain that can be seen on imaging, on CT scans or MRIs that make us really concerned.
The CDC says it made the determination based on mounting evidence from many studies. Images released today by researchers in Brazil, where the virus is widespread, show severe brain damage in babies with microcephaly. The white areas are signs of calcium, felt to represent destruction, inflammation, and scarring in tissues of the nervous system. The researchers said the damage was extremely severe, indicating a poor prognosis for neurological function. Obstetrician Dr. Jennifer Wu is with Lenox Hill Hospital.
This is not something that will go away, and this is something they'll have to live with for the rest of their lives.
Researchers are just at the beginning of learning about the dangers of Zika infection.
Typically, we find out about the tip of the iceberg first, and then we learn more. Sometimes it takes years to understand the full spectrum.
Today's news reinforces the CDC's recommendation for pregnant women to avoid travel to areas where Zika virus is spreading, and for their partners who have traveled there to abstain from sex or use latex
Troops
condoms.
from the Philippines and the U.S. have held live firing drills at a military camp north of Manila as part of their annual war games. The troops participated in a mock cooperative assault using ground and air assets to secure the area. The drill also staged a live demonstration of 2 high-mobility artillery rocket systems using reduced-range practice rockets. About 8,000 Filipino and American soldiers joined the 2-week military exercises. Filipino defense officials said the drills focus on command and control, communications, logistics, and mobility procedures to address humanitarian and maritime security. The 2 allies recently agreed to a greater U.S. military presence and the storage of equipment in 5 military bases.
We have a Fox News alert for you from Japan. That's where the U.S. Geological Survey is reporting a 7.0 magnitude earthquake just rocked the southern part of the country. After a 6.5 magnitude quake killed at least 9 people there yesterday and injured about 800 others. This 8-month-old baby girl, one of the lucky survivors. She was pulled from the rubble. Both earthquakes struck in the south. A tsunami warning also is now in effect for the local area, but not for the Hawaiian Islands or the U.S. mainland.
Heavy rainfall in Iran has caused severe flooding in 12 provinces, leaving several people dead. The floods have washed away cars and blocked roads. Iranian Railway Authority has canceled all trains scheduled for Friday to and from the southern parts of the country. Iran's Red Crescent says 126 cities have been affected by the floods. In Khuzestan, nearly 2,100 people have been evacuated to safer areas, that is. Several people have been injured in the southern province, while some 300 homes are underwater in Lorestan. Iran's President Hassan Rouhani has ordered authorities to mobilize all resources available to provide relief assistance to the flood-stricken people.
The DPRK attempted to launch what seems to be an intermediate-range Musudan missile, but failed. The launch took place early Friday morning local time and was fired into the waters east of the Korean Peninsula. This comes as the DPRK commemorates its most important national holiday today, the anniversary of Kim Il-sung's birthday, who is the country's founder and also Kim Jong-un's grandfather. Now, the Musudan missile is known to have a range of more than 3,000 kilometers, which means it could reach as far as the U.S.'s Army base in Guam, and this would be the missile's first flight test today. On Thursday, a mobile launcher was spotted carrying up to 2 of these missiles, according to Yonhap News Agency. And South Korea's defense ministry said the DPRK had not issued a no-fly or no-sail zone in the area, but South Korea was high on alert.
Takfiri terrorists have kidnapped more than 100 Iraqis in the Daesh-held city of Fallujah. Iraqi security sources said that the terrorists begun a massive offensive in western neighborhoods of Fallujah and abducted the people on suspicion of cooperation with the government. Daesh is notorious for mass kidnapping and mass execution of residents in the areas under its control in Iraq and Syria. Fallujah, located in Iraq's Anbar province, is considered to be one of the 2 main strongholds of the Takfiri terrorists. However, Iraqi government forces have surrounded and cut off supply routes into Fallujah as part of an army offensive to retake the city from the terrorists.
There may still be much that divides the international community over Syria, but aid for civilians isn't one of them. These are the skies over Deir ez-Zor earlier this week. The UN says supplies reached millions of Syrians in March. But no one can control the latest developments on the ground.
I cannot deny that everyone in the meeting was disappointed. Indeed, many of them actually frustrated by the lack of new convoys reaching, in particular, some areas which, as you know, have been identified as besieged.
In the north, Islamic State has advanced on rebel positions despite US claims that ISIL is retreating. Around Aleppo, Syria's second largest city, government forces are battling al-Nusra Front, a hardline Islamist group with links to al-Qaeda. In Geneva, the opposition says it's willing to join the government in a fight against terrorists if President Bashar al-Assad resigns.
Assad will not be in it. Assad will not be in the future of Syria anymore.
Syrian officials say this is out of the question.
Russia is deploying its ballistic missile and attack submarines in numbers, range, and aggression not seen in 2 decades. In an exclusive interview, the commander of U.S. naval forces in Europe tells CNN the buildup is part of an alarming strategic view.
They're very clear that NATO is viewed as an existential threat to Russia. Our military capability, they view in a very visceral way as a threat to Russia.
Adding to U.S. concern, Russia is deploying new submarines that are harder for U.S. naval forces to track and detect. Following years and billions of dollars in investment, they are quieter, better armed, and have a greater range of operation.
The submarines that we're seeing are much more stealthy. They're acoustically quieter. We're seeing them have more advanced weapon systems, missile systems that can attack land at long ranges.
The increased Russian sub-activity is backed by a much broader military expansion. Russia is adding or upgrading some 12 naval bases across the Arctic Circle, expanding its capability to send subs in numbers through the crucial Greenland-Iceland-UK gap into the Atlantic and closer to U.S. and NATO territorial waters. Moscow has also newly stationed 6 submarines in the Black Sea, giving Russia new capability into the Mediterranean. The U.S. believes the new activity is designed to deny NATO, including the U.S., the ability to operate within Russia's so-called near abroad.
What we see in these operations, it's focused on protecting the maritime flanks of Russia, but also denying NATO the ability to operate within the maritime flanks as well. And I'm speaking of the Baltic Sea, the Black Sea, and areas in the far North Atlantic around Norway.
Increasingly alarmed by Russia's new sub-deployments, the U.S. and its NATO allies are launching new training exercises in anti-sub warfare and deploying new systems, including the P-8 Poseidon.
What's that right there?
CNN got an exclusive trip on the Navy's most advanced sub-Hunter last May.
These are sonar buoys dropped into the water to track submarines. The plane can be equipped with torpedoes to destroy those submarines.
Russia's growing military activity extends above the surface as well. A Russian fighter jet's flyby of the USS Donald Cook this week, coming within 30 feet laterally and 100 feet vertically, is behavior that U.S. naval commanders have not witnessed since the Cold War.
We had issued radio calls in both English and Russian, and the aircraft didn't respond and proceeded on a course directly at the ship. So while we've seen these interactions before, this one was different because of the proximity to the ship, the altitude, and the flight path that it took.